So we're going to get started. I want to welcome you all for joining us today. Just a couple quick rules. There's no way we're going to be able to handle all the questions and all your questions and items of interest coming in. I've got a predetermined outline that we're going to be handling, and we'll go through that. Now, I do want to handle your questions though. So, we at AGC have established a Contractors COVID response strategy hotline. And if you all have a pencil in front of you, you can text that hotline at 802-793-5659. Again, any questions today or going forward for the next week to 10 days, you can text that hotline 802-793-5659. If you have verbal questions after today, verbal questions, we also have a contractor COVID response strategy work hotline, and that hotline has been dedicated at 802-229-9189. Again, I appreciate you all joining us. Quickly, in a nutshell, the fast advice to employers right now is we are planning for continued work. The state and a good share of developers have agreed we will keep contractors on the ground and meeting. Contractors are identified right now as a low risk workplace. I would advise my employees to not buy big items, to remind them that we're all in this together. Employers are going to have to give a little bit, and employees are going to have to give a little bit. We're going to work towards, all of us as a team, work towards a positive outcome. The outcome looks like it's somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks in Vermont, 4 and 6 weeks down the road. It will never be normal again, but somewhat normal in 4 to 6 weeks. And again, I want to remind you, those people looking for hand sanitizer, right now, the Smuggler's Notch Distillery is creating hand sanitizer, and it will be on the market on, I believe, on Monday. But just a couple quick things. Again, one of the big rules is I'm going to keep you all muted because we can't have the overtalk thing. I want to get right into, on the 10th, on Tuesday, OSHA revised its reporting requirements out there. Again, record keeping and reporting. OSHA record keeping requirements under 1904 mandate that covered employees record certain work-related injuries, illnesses on their 300 log. COVID-19 can be a recordable illness if there's a straight line to the worker infected as a result of performing their work. You have to remember in this that the case is a confirmed case. It's got to be a confirmed case of COVID-19. The case is work-related. They had to get it on the job, and there has to be a straight line back to the job. The case involves one or more of the general recording criteria. We'll talk about that in a minute. If an event or exposure in the work environment either caused or contributed to the injury or illness, it is presumed for injuries and illnesses resulting from events or exposures occurring within the work environment, unless there's an exception. And there is an exception, but you have to use good judgment on this. You are not required to record injuries or illnesses if at the time the injury or illness involves signs or symptoms that surface at work, but result solely from non-work related event or exposure. Let me talk about that for right now. One of our biggest exposures we have in this industry is probably not on the job. It is more often at the local Champlain Farms, 7-Eleven, Maple Woods, whatever you want to say. There's no more unsanitary place, and someone will scream at me, than those little coffee bars right now. So again, we've got to consider the straight line back to the workplace. I would start to instruct my employees to not stop for coffee on the way to work. Have coffee at the workplace, have coffee at the job site. Let's look at supply and water, a morning startup, but we have to start to look along those lines, limiting our outside exposure on the way to work. Again, the illness itself is not recordable if it's just the common cold or flu, and they've been very clear about that. How do I handle a case if it's not obvious whether it is? In these situations, you've got to evaluate the employee's work duties and environment that they were exposed to on the site. If OSHA requires employers to report any worker fatality within 8 hours, any amputation, hospitalization of a worker within 24 hours. If an employee has a confirmed case of COVID-19 that is considered, and again, straight line work-related, an employer would need to report that case to OSHA if it results in inpatient hospitalization of one or more employees. Again, there's more out there on this, illness record keeping, reporting. This and the other documents that we're going through today will be available on our website by close of business today. You also, if those of you that have joined us, you also have those sitting right in front of you. The other piece that's going to be on our website today is transition planning. I'm not going to get into transition planning a great deal, but I'm going to help you plan for worst case scenario here. We should be putting in place what we need to do in the worst case. We can all struggle through best case, but it's that worst case scenario that we're looking at internally. And we've been in contact with admin and the health department and a few other folks to help put this together for your benefit. Again, I reiterate, there is no thought right now to shut down any jobs or any construction which is Vermont based. Our biggest concern is going to be, what does the supply chain look like at this point in time? FEMA put out a very good document about 4 days ago, on the coronavirus business planning model and what they felt we should all be looking at planning going forward. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to text them in to 802-793-5659. To start with, AGC has established what we call C-CARES. C-CARES is Contractors COVID response strategy, Contractors COVID recovery strategy, recovery strategy. Rhode Island has probably done this as well as anybody right now, and we're basing some of this information right here on both FEMA and the state of Rhode Island. Continuity planning. we should be putting in place a succession plan of some sort. You have to identify staff members who can accurately assess how your company functions, both internally and externally. Determine which employees, materials, procedures, and equipment are essential to keep the business operating, and which functions are critical to survival and recovery. Again, the difference between COVID and Irene is that we all saw Irene. We cannot see this COVID thing. It's not out there. You aren't seeing buildings falling. You aren't seeing rivers washing stuff away. What we're trying to do, the recovery will be very similar. And I'm going to use John Casella for a moment, if John Casella got washed down the river in Irene, we would have figured out some way to get by without John Casella. You should be figuring out the same process today, that if you lose that key employee or a company owner for short-term or long-term, what is the transition strategy internally, how you're going to deal with that? Who should be available to make decisions, and how are decisions going to be made? Who will be hosting or keeping employees in touch with what's expected, what's not expected, how we operate and where we operate? Essential to keep the business, again, business operating, and which functions are critical. You should internally be establishing procedures for succession of management, including at least one person who is off-site. Again, we always want to keep one person clear and clean, and we should be establishing that. Practice worst case scenario. It's very possible somebody from your leadership team will at some point over the next 6 weeks be unavailable. Plan for the contingency and plan who's going to fill into that critical role. Decide which employees will be involved in pulling together an emergency business plan. If you don't already have an emergency business plan, put it together. We're giving you the tools to do it. We're giving you the tools to fill in the blanks, to add in and out people, but you have to do that. We will be here to support you, but you have to start to consider within your own business a broad cross-section of employees, but focus on those employees with expertise vital to the daily business functions. Compile a list internally of your key customers and establish a plan to serve them for the duration. Again, it's impossible at this time to know how long that's going to be, but you should be putting a plan in. As I said, I would be planning for the 6-week strategy. It's recommended that you look at 4 to 6 weeks. Look at outside vendors. Supply chains are going to be slowed down. Start to establish some relationships. Start to establish some relationships with outside vendors as well, and identify internally your key suppliers, vendors, subs, banks, and any other businesses. Start this conversation today. Start that conversation today to backfill those areas that you can't get through your normal supply chains and your normal pieces. Again, look outside for new relationships. If any of your employees are identified as having even casual contact with anyone, and we can't track that, again, that is very difficult, but you need to have a plan on what you will do if your building plant office is not accessible. If we end up with Mary at the front desk coming down with COVID-19 and we've got to quarantine that office, that business, and that becomes quarantined, as well as some of the employees within it, we better have a plan on how we're going to move this thing and how we're going to move out to be able to service our business and our clients without missing a beat. You guys have done it beautifully, and you have always been in the middle of making things work. Whether it was Irene, whether it was Halloween flooding, what it was, you've been the ones that we rely on to make this all happen and to go forward. We will all have a plan in place, and we will work as teams to get through this, but we have to, as teams, have plans internally how we're going to deal with the worst case. Have a system in place for communication with your employees and emergency planning for them. Open the lines of communication are essential during and after every piece we're doing. Include preparedness information, and we've all heard wash your hands. Speaking of that, little Perel during the day works fine. Try to include various updates in newsletters, on your company internet, your website. Again, upbeat. Start to look at shifting some of your documents over to a password protected page. A password protected page on your company website so that you have continual access whether you're at home or not at home. Jason Seacard learned this on his trip back from Las Vegas. He went into self-quarantine last week and all of a sudden realized that he didn't have all the access to the company documents that he had hoped to have. And they had to scramble quickly to put that in place. We should be able to do that and to operate from our homes and our house coats just as easily as we can operate from our job trailer out in the field. Designate in some
Hey, excuse me, sir.
Jason, you're supposed to be muted.
Yes, I know. Team Viewer works pretty well.
Okay. Thank you. Jason is talking about Team Viewer. I got to make sure you are all.
He came in after you muted everyone, so.
Okay. This is all new technology. I'm getting used to it. Again, set up a password protected page. As Jason just said, as far as company meetings and working on things together, there are two very good ones out there. Microsoft Teams is excellent. Team Viewer is excellent. Get those things in place, get some understanding of how they work, and get used to them. Again, create some sort of password protected page so you can share things and look at things through your website. Designate for your employees. I'll call it an 800 number, but some sort of conference line that can be used to communicate in the event of a quarantine with designated call times and personnel. Designate mandatory call times that we're all going to check in, we're all going to see what goes on. Remember, one of the biggest things that's happening out there is we are saying we want to limit social contact. I don't think they're actually saying we want to limit social contact. What we want to limit is face-to-face contact. We still want to have that moment at the water cooler. We still want to have that moment as we walk down the hall and talk to each other. Try to figure out some way that you can still have your water cooler moments in the event of a quarantine. So let's designate some times and personnel out there. Have a crisis plan. Detail how your organization plans to communicate with employees, even local authorities. We should be designating a COVID team or a COVID person, COVID response individual in each one of our companies that is going to handle just putting this piece together right now. Somebody in your company should be designated as that COVID emergency response person, and again, detail how your organization plans to communicate with employees, local authorities, emergency services, first response. Give employees information on how you'll communicate with them, when and how to report to work following any type of quarantine or anything else we're doing out there. Communicate clearly, don't leave anything to guess. Try to put in place very specific protocols to account for each and every one of your people. If you're able to provide assistance to the community, I don't care if it's trucks to move food, if it's box trucks to get materials, respirator masks, anything into different folks or different parts of the community, let's try to do that and think about how we can help the community recover as well. I would check with my IT folks to ensure that your employees, your key employees, all have the right tools to work remotely. VPN access, printer or scanner, fax. Do they have monitors at home, keyboard, mouse? What do we need to do to better react out in the real world and seem seamless in what we're actually doing internally, or where we're working from internally? Review your business insurance coverage. Goes without saying, consider how you will pay creditors, employees. If you're a business owner or principal, you should also plan on how you provide for your own income and how you're going to survive individually. Finally, find out what records your insurance provider will want to see after this incident is over. If there's insured recovery, that's one side. We're going to have FEMA recovery and or some type of business recovery out there. As we find out what is going to be required to apply for some of that recovery money, we will let you know as soon as we know. But again, find out what type of forms or what they're going to do when this is all over. Determine, and this is a key one, determine who will be in charge of the premises in the event you need to close suddenly. And I'm not just talking building wise, but you should have a plan in place to secure any and all job sites that are out there. In the time of trouble, one of the quickest ways to lose our shirts is to see our supplies running over the hill or see our equipment on eBay for sale. Figure out a way to secure your job sites as quickly as humanly possible to alleviate any thought of theft or stuff leaving. Make sure you have all entrances and exits secure. Identify machinery, computers, custom parts, other essential equipment needed to keep the business up and running. Business recovery, as I said, they're trying to put together a business aid package, and again, Vermont will be working with them, and as soon as we have some stuff in place or know of some stuff going forward, we will let you know. We have been working closely with Lindsay Curley from the Commerce Department. We've been working closely with the admin administration here, and I think we're on the front side of this right now as far as getting information out to our members, and we'll continue to do so. Remind your employees and remind everybody in your office that in the time of strife, cyber criminals usually kick into high gear during a crisis. Make them aware of it. Remind employees to stay vigilant and delete any unsolicited COVID-19 updates they receive. Never open any attachments. Employees, immediately in the event a situation gets worse in your areas, look into how do you fill your prescripts, your meds, How are we gonna make deposits, to keep them running, to keep them being paid? Again, I think employees have to be reminded. I think it's very important that we remind our employees that we're all in this together and everybody's gonna have to give a little bit. I was talking to a contractor this morning, and that contractor's thinking of shifting over to 2-week intervals. It might be something we all consider. If there's not enough work out there to keep us busy 100% of the time, maybe we shift over where we have teams working in 2-week intervals. I'm willing to pay you for 2 weeks. You can get your temporary UI for 2 weeks, and then we'll bring the other team back in for the next 2 weeks. And we put together a 2-week jump schedule with the UI helping to backfill those lost wages during that piece. There's some information out on that I believe we've been sending out, and we'll make sure you get it. If you have not gotten it, please text our hotline at 802-793-5659. Thank you. Again, stay calm. Stay calm. Most people who become infected experience only mild illness. We're at 22 infected right now. The estimate is by next weekend we'll be about 150 infected. 22 today, 150 by next weekend. If we come out of this weekend with less than 50 infected, we will be ahead of the curve and we'll be doing what is needed to be done. Common sense precautions, again, you guys have heard it over and over. We'll talk about this in a second, but regularly and thoroughly clean your hands whenever possible. Stay 6 feet away from everybody. If you have a fever, cough, difficulty breathing, seek medical care. Call your doctor at the first sign you're not getting any better. Stay home if you are sick. FEMA has put together a continuity planning checklist. Your business plan, you should have some sort of business plan and analysis to identify and document the activities and tasks that are performed within your organization, and who are the strategic players to make that happen, and who are the backup players needed to make that happen. Again, everybody is at risk equally here, and there's no protection for any one of us. Let's make sure we have somebody right behind us that can fill back in without missing a step. Conduct a risk assessment to identify and analyze potential threats and hazards. Take a look at your business impact analysis. Identify the organization's essential functions and what's needed to keep it going. And identify your key elements. Again, I said it earlier, one of the boxes that's missing in our world is plan to secure your job sites. If needed, if it goes to shutdown, total shutdown, which we don't see if our numbers keep holding the way they are, we don't see this as being a construction shutdown. Again, we are a low exposure industry, and consequently we don't see this happening. But you should have a plan in place to secure your job sites out there. Matt, do we have any questions?
No, sir.
We're doing good then.
Yep.
Thank you.
Might want to repeat the phone number.
I don't want to give that number out too many times. 802-793-5659 if you want to text something in. The General Contractors Association of Hawaii just put out a very good toolbox talk for safety meetings. Again, we should be having or referencing some type of toolbox talk, some type of communication to our employees on what's expected, how it spreads, and what the complications are out there, how to protect themselves, and then remember, we don't want to create fear or anger towards anybody. We've got to fight that, and we've got to keep the job site safe, and then any other topics you've discussed. It's not a bad idea, all these pieces. are printable. There are poster size pieces that I've included. Stop the spread of germs, help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases, posted on our job sites in our office space. Make sure and get that message out to everybody. The big one, and we are all realizing it, we had 2 deaths yesterday in Vermont. Stay home when you're sick. Again, except to get medical attention. Let's identify the difference, and we can't really identify the difference between sick and COVID. Right now, we've got to err on the better side of that. If we aren't feeling well, if we've got a runny nose, if we've got a high fever, we got to stay home until we're released to come back to work. Again, you can get more information on that if you want. The stop germs, wash your hands, probably posted in the bathrooms or in the outhouses. Again, keep that message going.
Richard, we do have a question.
Oh, we have a question. We have a question.
So, question. Do we have any information on whether hotels are expected to be closed down?
At this point in time, hotels have not been put on the list to be closed, and I believe the governor's press conference this afternoon is going to address the good job we're doing and not we're shutting more things down. I believe at this point it is everybody's intent to keep those facilities open for the near future. Hope that answered your question. ECI put out a real good job site piece. ECI put on a real good job site piece. It might be something that you take a look as your company protocol. Start limiting access to essential needs only in any of your buildings. Try to coordinate as much as possible by phone. And again, our exposure tends to be our outside trips. Minimize your outside trips. Try to plan those trips to the shop and suppliers so we don't have people running around out in the public. Best personal management practices. Again, one of those funny ones is look more at bringing your lunch from home than running down to the corner deli or whatnot. Try not to share pens. Stay home if you're sick. Mandatory employee disinfectant practices. Try to clean your vehicles. Wipe them down with wipes, sanitizer, steering wheels, radio knobs, door handles. Wipe them down as much as possible, which brings me back to, again, Smuggler's Notch Distillery. Those fine folks in Smuggler's Notch will be creating, and I believe it will be on the market on Monday. Put your orders in soon for the Smuggler's Notch hand sanitizer. John Connor, that's not a joke, they are doing it. Company disinfectant, daily wipe down of common surfaces. Regular cleaning 3 times per week. And then ECI work status, again, open with reduced staff and limited access. Field projects ongoing, and those field projects, again, with appropriate measures. I'm sharing this with you. Wow. I'm sharing this with you because I believe every company should have some sort of COVID-19 protocols in place, and we should be addressing it. On the backside, don't be afraid to talk to your fellow contractors. This isn't a bid. This isn't a I'm low bid, boy I'm pissed at him time. This is a time that we as contractors should be coordinating together in a joint response in how we're doing it. And in doing so, I would tell you again, I reiterate, appoint a construction COVID recovery strategy and appoint a point of contact for us to get in touch with. If you could, over the next 12 hours or so, if you could send us your point of contact that you want included in these updates. We will be doing these updates at least every Friday at 10 o'clock, at least every Friday at 10 o'clock. And if things get more rapid, we will increase the frequency. We would, instead of everybody from the company or whatnot, we would like to be able to communicate with a point of contact on our COVID team. Right now, we're counting on owners and safety and health folks. If there's a specific person you want included in it, frankly, let us know. Plan for the worst case. Everybody plan for the worst case. What happens if the president or owner is down for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is, or in their entirety they leave us? They're no longer with us. What do we do internally? The prediction right now is that 50% of us will be infected by COVID virus over the next 6 to 8 weeks. That all being said, it's going to sharply reduce our workforce and sharply reduce our ability to work in and out of this. Have planned or practical layoff procedures if needed, and remember, unemployment is looking at that that temporary layoff, that temporary stuff, and that will be available to our members. You've got to swipe it. There you go. Vermont right now, the current status, and this has been in 1 week, went from 116 people being monitored to 300. 274 have completed monitoring. That was at 20 a week ago. 22 have tested positive for COVID-19, and we have lost 2. And again, that's been in just a week. DEW put together a very good, and I commend DEW, a very good policy and or procedure for dealing with COVID. It's now in all New England states. We're going to try to keep our employees in field office environments as safe as possible to do our part in contributing. If you have any signs or illnesses, they have limited in the field daily and weekly foreman or subcontractor in-person meetings. Employees should take breaks or lunch separately. They've actually put together split times for breaking and split times for lunch. Organize work teams such that the same people are working together as much as practical. And then no weekly in-person meetings with the owners, architects. Again, what we want to see, more folks using technology, whether it's WebEx, GoToMeeting, Teams, whatever it is. We're probably more use of that. On your job sites, start to limit, or you should be limiting job sites to just employees, no external visitors or guests, and update all upcoming meetings with external people on either GoToMeeting or your own piece. Disinfect, disinfect, disinfect. We're aware that efforts to contain the virus include school and daycare closings, and we'll do our best to support parents who need to be home with their children. We will continue to be open. DEW and all of you will continue to be open, but please be as transparent as possible with all your employees. Should anything change, let's try to keep them in the loop in what's going on. I mentioned it earlier, you might start to think about half on, half off in 2-week cycles, if needed. Sign-in sheets, sign-in sheets. A good option on all job sites and office. DEW put together a good little sign-in sheets. We should be running those on a daily basis. Have you had direct contact with anyone who has tested positive or being treated? Have you or anyone been in contact or traveled to any outlying areas? Again, good move, sign-in sheets for job sites. Again, we've got to be able to create straight back that front line under the 1904 OSHA standard. I'm going to try something here. Let's see how it goes. So I just unmuted y'all, so you can try to ask a question or you can try to say something. My program is fairly done. I am willing to take a few questions if you would like to ask them.
Okay, I have one.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay. Our utility company in Vermont has shut down except for emergency work. That means 90 to 95% of our work is done at this point. What do you suggest we do with our workers?
I'm going
We
to
need
tell.
some from time to time.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to go on that bi-weekly strategy, or look for temporary help from the Department of Labor with the unemployment piece. That's literally what you're going to have to do.
Yeah, we are playing eeny, meeny, miny, mo with work, basically switching people on and off as needed, but we only have minimal work right now, based upon the lack of utility. Until change their mind, and it's for the foreseeable future, it could be at least 3 weeks,
Yes.
before GP decides to work. They have all the same concerns, and their guys don't ride together. All of my non-drivers can't work at all, so they're definitely to temporary unemployment.
Yes. No, I think that's where we have to shift. I think employees, and this was a conversation. Okay, I'm going to ask you to mute yourself again. I think employees as well are going to have to understand that they're going to have to give a little bit as much as the owners and the employers are going to have to give, and we're going to have to create a balance. But I would remind all of them, it might not be the best year to go out and buy a new Harley Davidson or a new boat. We really got to start to think about what we're going to do over the next 6 to 8 weeks that will keep us moving for the next 18 months. And that really is one of those things we have to do. I'm unmuting you again. Anybody else with a question today?
I don't know where your questions are coming in that are typed, but ECI asked one about DigSafe. If we know that DigSafe is operating.
So Jason, I've got a bunch of questions within my chat box. I'm getting used to this tech. I'll tell you why I'm getting used to this technology as much as anybody. And one of the funnier conversations we had recently, was the fact that admin and other associations are considering AGC to be one of the most technologically advanced associations in the state right now. And I'm trying to explain to them, we just went out and bought a $69 webcam and we set it up in the office, and we've been able to talk and keep things going. But along those lines, ECI asked, are we talking with USIC to make sure they're taking care of DigSafe notifications? We have been talking with DigSafe themselves, and we understand they will be servicing those DigSafe notifications, and will be in touch with you. That's my understanding right now. If that's not happening, could you please call the AGC COVID hotline, 229-9189, 802-229-9189. Thank you for that answer. Deborah, you asked, can these docs be available on your website? Every doc I have shown you today, as well as every doc you received in the mail, as well as a outline for transition and succession planning, a fill-in-the-blank outline, will be available on our website by close of business today. Then Paul Pierce said, will this presentation and the docs associated be available to download? Paul, not only will they be available for download off our website, but this whole presentation, as we stand here, is being videotaped. And Matt Musgrave has figured out a way to put that thing out there on the internet too. So we'll get a bunch of people just texting to that AGC COVID hotline, 802-793-5659. And then, are construction workers considered essential function for daycare purposes? We are considered a neutral function at this point in time. In New York, they declared construction workers as being essential. We submitted the paperwork to have us upgraded from neutral to essential, and I'm supposed to have word back on that later on this afternoon. We have asked for essential preference in this, and I will keep you up to speed on that. Again, we are somewhat ahead of this curve right now in information going out and the ability to get information out, and we have been working on some of these concerns in the background. If you hadn't received, you got notification from AOT and ourselves yesterday that all road projects and all AOT projects will continue as planned, as well as they moved up the start date from April 15th to March 23rd. Get a hold of your regional person and we can get on the road and moving on March 23rd. Do I have any other messages out? No, I think I've got those questions answered. I'll go back to the crowd again. Unmuted? Does anybody have an in-person question? Anybody with an in-person question? Guys? Guys, let's be safe out there. We will be rerunning this, literally. We'll make another presentation at 2 o'clock this afternoon. If you have any questions, you can text the COVID hotline, 802-793-5659, or you can call us in person at 802-229-9189. We're happy to help you in any way. Thank you and be safe. Let's keep this Vermont rolling. Thank you.